I want to understand what kind of story were you hearing from your parents? Because now your parents, when they are telling you story, they are telling you story of their own parent too, of their own people that are before them, so that they tell it to you that you have the obligation of also telling it to your children, so that your children pass it on to other children. So from you going backward now, what were you hearing from your parents? They were telling you of their own growing up, the people they met, their own parent too, and all that. Educate us about that. We're interested in your story.
This is a hard question. So, um,
Of course,
right,
parents here mean people that are in the family, not necessarily your father, no, because I understand what have happened, what you said, no, but it might be somebody
yeah,
that come from the family now, who sort of help you to understand where you are coming from, and because again, among the African diaspora community, our connection is very important. Help me with that.
okay, all right. So, I suppose the important person here is my brother. I think I was 8 or 9 when my brother came to England from Jamaica. It changed everything about my understanding about Jamaica. Um, I remember one of the first things that he used to sing Yellow Bird. I think it's Harry Belafonte sings this song, Yellow Bird. I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to try. And I was like, wow, that's a Jamaican song. Oh my God. Um, so then I realized that there's, we're listen, you know this, we're people of melody. All of us Africans, we have to have melody, some kind of music. And that was like, okay, he wasn't as deep into music as me. Um, then he spoke about where he lived in Jamaica, that he used to leave school and then go swimming in a lake. I was like, what? And that was again, that was that blew my mind. Um, some of the foods that he used to talk about that obviously we couldn't get. Again, that really made me get an idea, sense of connection, albeit, but also difference. That actually, what we do, we cooked West Indian food at home. Um, I got the sense that he was happy in Jamaica. Things are not perfect, but I got the sense that he was very happy, and that was a very profound thing to know, that this is what it's like in the West Indies. And obviously, that's not the case for everybody. I could even feel the sunshine from him. And it was one time I went to Jamaica. He lives in Jamaica now. And I said, you know what? All these years, I still don't feel like I'm Jamaican. And he said, don't let anybody tell you that. Don't let anybody tell you that. You're Jamaican. I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Um, so in terms of the story, um, it was my brother. Also, we grew close to a family. This family is called Watson. Uh, um, the family also came from Jamaica, and one of the main people in the family, there was 3 of them, 3 children, and they were our age, and we became like one big family. And Yui was the middle child, and he was Jamaican, and he had the drive, he had a passion, he was charismatic, he was a great footballer, and uh, he sadly 3 years ago he passed away. But we're kind of related because it's actually my wife's nephew, which obviously I didn't know at the time. But in terms of being a Jamaican, he gave us this idea of being strong, being stoic. And he um it was his funeral, 3 years ago, and it's the biggest funeral I've ever seen. And what I said a speech, and I said, this is what legacy is about. This is what community is about. And that's what Yui was about. And that's what I didn't understand about West Indians and Jamaicans and Africans, that we are about community. And when we get stripped away from community into this idea, when I was at school, Obia, and they were talking about a nuclear family. You heard of nuclear family? And I was like, what are they talking about? I didn't know why were they talking about? Yeah, the next thing is a nuclear family. You have 2.2 children and blah, blah, blah. And when I used to speak to some of my uncles, they was like, what are they talking about? No, if a child's going to school and they look like they haven't got enough money, you give them you give them, you give them a couple of dollars, you go and buy some lunch, and and that experience of community, I think, is the main part of the story that I gathered from my brother, and I got from my dear friend Yui, that's what we're about, but also about beauty, about art. There's a woman, a famous Jamaican woman. Her name's Louise Bennett. So Louise Bennett is an advocate for the Jamaican language. She says we should talk patois. She's a famous poet. And the interesting thing is, she used to go to school with my mum. And my mum used to say, oh yeah, I used to go to school with Louise Bennett. And it's that richness of being West Indian, Jamaican, or African that I didn't know that we had. Richness of how we behave, richness of our music, our story, our heritage, the richness of our art, and the country, and our spirit. So I don't know if this is answering the question, but if you don't have that connection, you feel impoverished. You feel like, riches aren't just money. It's not even money. It's about you. It's what's in you and what you connect with. So, to answer your question, I got that definitely from my brother and a few other people, but also from Yui as well.
Mhm. All right, can you tell me more about this method of transmission of this information among you? Is it okay now among the African diaspora, particularly those that are coming from, let's say, West Africa or Nigeria to be specific in this case? They organize churches, and in this churches, what I've understand because I've gone around in my research trying to understand this community, because this podcast actually is coming from that research. I've written 2 books about it. Uh,
Yeah,
in that even the church that they organize here is not really like the European church. It's different, no? The energy there is different. The way
yeah,
they organize themselves, not just the dressing now, but the relationship between them and this God, even though it's a European concept of God, is even different, no? So this is the African way of living the community, no? Yeah, sometimes it is part of the ghettoization of ourselves, or not wanting to be part of the larger society, the European society. But it's also the reason behind it is also part of the rebellion, because we don't want to lose everything that we have and just embrace Europe wholeheartedly. We want to have something of our own. For this reason, people sort of tend to organize themselves like this so that they can eat their food, do their own discussion, and even worship in different ways. So this is a way of passing on their story. This is something very deep that we can explore actually, but I'm just on the surface now. So let's leave it on the surface there. So which are the ways that this story was passed on that you know of the Jamaicans in UK in this sense? Because now, for you to be able to know this story, it means that it has been passed on to you. And what is very funny about human narration, about human story, is not that they will just tell you, hey, come, let me tell you about this story. No, you just live. By living, you come to be part of it. You know it, the thing that you are supposed to know. So tell me about these rituals.
okay. So music, that's it. So I didn't know the depth of why they're singing like that. Incidentally, today I'm going with my wife to the Bob Marley. It's a exhibition that Bob Marley's daughter has done in the Saatchi Gallery. So the transmission, this is so interesting, was music. So it's, it's a physical, literal, and spiritual vibration that gets you understanding this story. That's how it came across. The other part was films. So there was one film called The Harder They Come, with I forgot the guy's name, Jimmy Cliff, and there's other films called Countryman, and there's another film with a group called Aswad. So these are the films that are telling us the story. I don't know if it wasn't really pertaining to religion, um, but I suppose Caribbean people and African people came, and like you said, they wanted to bring that. So that way, that was, I don't know if that was transmitted um, to us enough, because I remember my mum wanted to go to church, and she said they wouldn't let her go to Church of England, so we went to another church.